starting off with Shelly. To be honest, when I first saw her, I thought she was just a normal snail or something. Shelly is an ammonite, an extinct marine mollusk related to squids and octopuses, and her original concept art reflect a cracked ammonite look. One where these tendril-like antlerish things are coming out of her eyes, another where her shell is cracked in a way that almost looks like an eye patch. Neither of these designs really clicked with me. To me, they felt a bit too similar to a common twisted, both in height and overall shape. The one that did catch my eye though was this really gross, drippy, stringy version of her.
What the hell? What the hell?
The black stringy stuff running down her body almost looks like tentacles, and honestly, it just makes more sense. I removed the ribs, adjusted her height to better match the reference.
Her arms were cut off. Her legs were cut off. Her ears were cut off.
I tried using her tail as a base for the tendrils, but it didn't give me much control over the geometry, so instead I deleted it, started from scratch, and used curves and sculpted the shapes manually. I quickly stenciled out the paths I wanted each tendril to follow, then went back and forth adjusting the sizes to improve the silhouette. For her arms, I noticed that this design is basically an inverted version of her official twisted form. The ichor is on the palm and forearms instead of upper arms. That's a really interesting design choice, and it honestly made me wonder why the official twisted version has ichor leaking from her shoulders instead. Anyway, after that, I desaturated the colors to better match the reference. Then I worked on the drippy ichor around her mouth, and yeah, it's deeply unsettling. It looks just like it's silencing her.
You think you can make my daughter cry for free? Yeah.
I was also really curious about Quell's choice to give her different eye shapes. Octopuses have slit pupils, squids have circular ones. It's a really cute nod to cephalopods, especially since we don't fully know what kind of eyes an ammonite would have had. After some final tweaks to the dress shape, I moved on to rigging. I was able to reuse the original Twisted Shelly rig, but with some significant changes, especially the legs. They're no longer digigrade, they're more human-like in function. And finally, after all that, here's me posing her to match the reference, sculpting out some extra shapes along the way for clarity and accuracy. I would be genuinely terrified if I saw this. Next up is Dandicious Dandyfur. His twisted version in-game is absolutely massive, genuinely monstrous, even compared to the other twisteds. So I was pretty surprised to see that Quell originally took a much more toned down approach.
Definitely need some juice today. Oh, too much. Too sweet.
Looking through his concept art was really interesting. There's an alternate version where he has 4 arms, similar to Astro. Ichor is spewing from the tops of his eyes like some kind of light flare. He also has socks, which felt really goofy, until I realized his main concept art also has socks. So that was apparently always part of the vision. And I've actually seen a few fan-made versions of this design floating around online. Creepy for sure, but not what I wanted to make. Instead, I decided to recreate the other concept since I hadn't seen anyone attempt it yet. In the concept art, he's basically this long plant stem coming out of his egg-like body, grin plastered over his face. For the model, I started with Dandy's original twisted design. I removed his body and legs, stripped the tape bands from his arms, and resized everything slightly to better match the proportions in the concept art. I took his normal torso and duplicated it. One version would become the black ichor stalk, and the other I cracked open to form that egg-like shape. When I placed it back under his torso, it initially looked way too small, honestly a bit goofy, so I spent some time adjusting the scale and proportions until it felt right. Switching to the side view was pretty funny. He had the worst shrimp posture imaginable, which I can relate to Dandy. It's currently me editing this video. I also realized the petal design on his head looked kind of balding from the side, which somehow I never noticed before. Like, how did I look at his design and think, yeah, that looks normal? To fix that, I wrapped the petals around the back of his head and sharpened them so they'd read more clearly as a flower. I experimented with a side profile, folding the leaves back and tweaking the angles until I matched the reference more closely. I also ensured to kind of connect the stalk of his neck into a visible front, because you can kind of see his neck in this version as compared to his normal form. The arms stayed mostly the same, but I changed the colouring. Rigging took a while because of how unusual his shape was. I referenced both his normal and twisted rigs and added an extra support sphere in the chest area to help stabilize his shoulders. After a lot of adjustment and trial and error, I brought the arms forward and carefully matched the pose to the reference. For the face, I darkened his eyes and added those beady red pupils in the center. His mouth was adjusted to show more teeth, with his gums exposed, almost like a feral animal of some sorts. His fangs are definitely more visible in this version as compared to his final twisted design. I posed him and then realized, crap, I need to tweak the eyes again. I went back in and adjusted the highlights until I got that mischievous threatening glint just right. I briefly considered skipping V since I'd already seen someone also recreate her concept art, much like the Dandy one, but I ended up doing it anyway. Unfortunately, I completely forgot to hit record. It was devastating. So instead, you get a bonus character from me. We're not going to end off on V, we'll have one more. She was originally meant to emerge from vents in a more surprise-based mechanic. It reminds me of the mechanics behind Blot's arms. Unlike V, where she might have been fixed at a vent location, Blot's arms were a lot more versatile and they like appear out of nowhere on the floor. So I really like how they tried implementing that later. Hopefully they do more of that soon. Sprout was the last character I decided to model, and I'm honestly so glad I did. I had not seen his concept art before, and since it was my favorite, it was fun imagining an alternate version of his twisted design. His face on the concept art looks more confused.
Bang.
I came in and started off with some basic things like adjusting textures where I could, shrinking his ponytail because we don't see it much in his concept art. His scarf sort of takes the center stage here. His arms, I sharpened them off and gave them that greeny nail color. His scarf, I thought about remodeling from scratch. Ultimately, I decided it would be more simpler to cut it somewhere in the half and give it this raggedy edge to it, as if it's been ripped off. I played around with some wiggle bone physics until I had a nice accurate shape over his head. I went in and adjusted his leaf petals, his hair on his head, making them a bit longer in angles and tilting them. I removed a lot of his dripping ichor tears and fixed in the mouth. After some posing and rigging tweaks, I was really happy with the final result. And then I was completed! Here is the full lineup. It's so fascinating to think about how different the game might have been if these designs made it in. Dandy being shorter, V having a different mechanic, and the Twisteds overall being less intimidating. Personally, I'm glad we kept Twisted Sprout as he is. We almost lost a body, guys. Modelling Shelly's concept art helped me learn a lot more about her background. And Dandy, as funny as this is, I'm glad we didn't end up with this egg stalk monster. What we got instead is so much better. Let me know what you think of these designs and if you've learned something new. If there are other concept arts you'd like me to recreate, twisted or normal, let me know in the comments. See you in the next one!